everyone, and welcome to today's hair tutorial. I rarely do any hair tutorials, and so I thought I would like to start off with something very simple and easy that maybe not everyone has mastered. I think it's kind of fun to have hairstyles on the internet that are meant for people with textured, layered, fun hair. Let's face it, most hair gurus have gorgeous hair, have extensions, have curls and waves, and maybe you're tuning in because you know that's not me. And as it says in the title, as it says in the title, for layered textured hair. So this is a really great way to get the hang of doing braiding on hair that has a lot more texture. Hair that has a lot more texture is generally around 6 inches, falls a little bit or above the shoulder line, and has a lot of layering. Let's face it, that's a lot of us who enjoy having beautiful layers in our hair that maybe want to embark on trying out different hairstyles. I definitely love having a fun haircut, and I'm not somebody who would want to have a very long hairdo without any real texture to it. But that's most of us with a cosmetology license. We love to have very fun, very activated hair that is also colored. This definitely makes hairstyles either really, really cute or really, really awful depending on how you style them. So today's tutorial is going to just be a basic fishtail. Now the end result of my fishtail is very tight. The fun thing about doing a fishtail is it's so secure because it has different layers that are woven throughout the hair, so it will stay in. You can always loosen it up as an end result. If you're somebody who works as a nurse or somebody who works in food service whose hair has to be fairly secure, this is a great hairstyle to try out where you may not want it to look as messy because you don't want it to become undone. I'm not saying bartending is a serious job, but safety and sanitation is serious. So if you would like to learn how to do a fun basic French tail braid on layered to textured hair, then keep on watching this tutorial. Because I've had short hair so many times in my life, I tend to forget a lot of hairstyles, and pretty much the only hairdos I ever really learned were in Girl Scouts. All my life growing up, I pretty much wore a ponytail, a braid, or my hair half up. Any hair I know is learned through cosmetology school. I'm much better at working with processing chemicals than I am actually finishing a hairdo, which is why I don't work as a hairstylist, basically. I am a fully licensed cosmetologist, so you're probably wondering how I got my license in the first place. And basically, you don't need to know how to do much of any real hairstyle besides knowing directions with rollers, that's kind of it. Yeah, you pretty much just need to know how to do a finger wave and put rollers in. Basically, you need to know how to part hair and work with how it flows, and that's the purpose of doing finger waves at State Board. Anyways, so that being said, being a finishing touch hairstylist has never been in my forte at all. Whenever it came to doing something creative, whenever I was in cosmetology school, I typically worked on the makeup or writing up certain portions of essays if essays of course were necessary. Currently I'm teaching myself a lot of new styles. I don't go and get haircuts as often just because I have financed a lot of things in this house, and my name is pretty much on everything, so I have a lot of new bills just because I just moved to Alabama. But of course things will calm down, quiet down, and I'll be sure to be able to layer my hair sometime in the future. Whenever it comes to styling hair with layers in it, it's typically easier. Whenever you start learning how to do hair in cosmetology school, you typically will layer a mannequin's head. You'll basically take it from about 12 inches of hair down to about 6 with layers, and this becomes more manageable for hair to be styled. If your hair is sleek and straight, a fishtail braid or any braid will not hold its style as long. If your hair is extremely wavy and very, very heavily curled, your braid will hold much easier and much longer than if your hair is silky smooth and straight. Now I have obviously smoothed out my hair given the fact that my waves are all over the place, but it's not necessary to detexturize your hair before doing a braid, as a braid will add texture. So to get started on this look, we're going to begin with the back of my head, and we're going to separate the hair into 2 sections. If you're completely new to braiding and you need more security, be sure to create a rubber band hold at the top of your head. If you're like me, where you have a lot of layers, this may not be the best choice because you're basically cutting off those layers into the rubber band, and when you go to cut them off, those layers will come out of the braid. When it comes to fishtail braiding, you just want to make sure your hair looks really smooth and pretty in the front, because as we feed those layers, it can become looser for the rest of the hair. And so now that I like the front of my hair, I'm going to separate my hair into 2 sections. The thing about a fishtail braid is it's not your typical braid. It's basically managing your hair into sections and feeding hair through sections. So I'm going to start off with a piece of hair from the right side or left side, your choice, and we're going to pull it to the opposite side. Did you see that? Awesome. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to take a piece of hair from the left side and feed it to the right. If you're right-handed, starting on the left might be easier for you. I'm left-handed, so I'm always going to begin on the right side more often than not. So again, taking a piece of hair and feeding it through to the other side. Taking a piece of hair from the far left and feeding it to the center right. Taking a piece of hair from the far right and feeding it to the center left. We're going to continue this process. If this tutorial gets a little boring for you, feel free to click out of it. This tutorial is not something that's meant to be watched in full if you don't need to. And of course, you can click out whenever you get the hell of it, wow. Whenever you get the hang of it, feel free to click out or follow along. So I'm going to take a piece of hair from the remaining right, feed it through the left. It's important to not hang on to too many sections of hair and know that you're basically feeding from the far to the center. Now, whenever I do hairstyle on this channel, I've typically done them for shorter layered hair, and they're typically not hairstyles for the whole entire head, unless I'm teasing the crown. That being said, this is probably my most complex hair tutorial, aside from the finger waves I did, which was actually designed for cosmetology students. Now, you don't have to remain consistent when you pick up sections of hair, but just know if you don't remain consistent when you pick up that little piece of hair, that your braid might look a little off throughout the remaining of the braid. This is why you can see it's really good for layered hair, considering we don't need hair to have even texture throughout, as we feed and feed throughout the hair. One thing I like to teach people about braiding is sometimes you do get a little confused when you're staring at yourself doing braiding, because then you actually really start to focus on strands and you can get lost. When you're simply doing it blindly and just grabbing a strand and holding onto pieces of hair, it's really easy. It may not make for the prettiest braid, but once you get the hang of the motions, then you can start to look in the mirror and see what you're doing. I have come to find that doing anything in the front of my face along the circumference or the shape of my scalp is much harder. So that's why I wanted to start with doing something in the back of my head for you guys. I think you guys probably get the gist of it, but as you can see, I'm not really braiding, I'm just kind of waterfalling in a sense. If you are going to be hosting like a Girl Scout troop party, doing hairdos is one of the best ways to encourage young girls to get along and enjoy each other. I certainly wish I had more tutorials on braiding with friends. And then my mother knew I would get super creative, so she was afraid they'd send me home because I went to some Christian schools in my childhood. So my mother always styled my hair to sort of keep me on the from getting too creative, so I never really learned a lot of styles. True story. Because my mom knew when I came home from school, I'd pretty much do just about anything I wanted to. My hair, my look, whatever. And she was okay with that as long as I was playing. But she never wanted me to get kind of too crazy with it. So I hope that you enjoyed today's tutorial using the fishtail braid. If you're someone like me whose hair gets a little choppier or narrow through the end, you can always just sort of secure off the hair at that point, or whenever you get tired of fishtail braiding, or whenever you feel you have enough of a braid and you're happy with it. So I hope that you enjoyed today's tutorial. You can do this on the side of your head, you can do this in the front of your head, you can even kind of do it all along the back of the head, kind of like a French braid, a classic French braid, or you could just do this little braid in the back like I did. The braid in the back, the fishtail for layered hair, is actually more secure than a typical braid because the hair doesn't need to travel the length of the hair. As you can see, I fed the hair and I basically threaded it through, and so it makes for a much neater, secure hairstyle. It's gonna look nice all day long. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial, and thank you for watching.